Mr. President, the conversation around voting in the country has been fraught, particularly in the final months leading up to this campaign. And folks may be confused out there about how they should vote, when they should vote, and where they should vote, but most importantly, why they should vote. So why don't you tell us, why should folks be voting, particularly those on this Zoom call today and those around the country watching?
Well, let me first of all say, if you're on the Zoom call, I know you're voting. The question is not whether you're voting. The question is whether you're getting your cousin, your uncle, grandma, best friend, coworker, whoever it is that is in your circle of influence to turn out to the polls. And I think there are a couple of messages that I just want to communicate on this issue. First of all, I think we all understand that there are very concrete issues that are going to impact the well-being, the health, the welfare of millions of people determined in this election. And we'll just take one example, and that is the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. And by the way, I'm proud that it's called Obamacare, but I want to acknowledge that it wasn't just Obamacare, it was a Democratic Congress care and a health advocates care. There were a lot of people who fought for a very long time to not solve every problem in healthcare, but to provide 20 million people the chance to have healthcare, to be able to get covered so that if their child got sick, they were able to not only get decent coverage, but also not lose their house or be bankrupted. It's a law that ensured that if you had a pre-existing condition, even if you already had insurance, it made sure that you had protection so that if you lost your job, now you had to buy new insurance. They couldn't discriminate against you just because you had previously been sick. If you had had cancer before, or you have severe asthma or some other condition, before this law, you might be out of luck in terms of being able to purchase insurance. The law made sure that women weren't chronically having to pay a lot more than men for insurance just by virtue of being women. It lifted lifetime limits, because it used to be you thought you had insurance, but if you had an illness that got expensive enough, the insurance company might say, you know what, you've hit your limit, now you got to go out of pocket. So all that is on the ballot, because we know that it is possible that the Supreme Court, particularly if you now have the president's new appointee on the Supreme Court, is going to be deciding a case as to whether or not that law stands. And if we want to make sure that those 20 million people who have insurance and the millions of others who are getting protection under this insurance have a backstop assurance that they're still going to be covered afterwards, the single most important thing we can do is make sure that we've got a Democratic president, a Democratic vice president, and a Democratic Congress. Now, I'm using that as one example, but we could be talking about climate change, what we've witnessed over the course of this summer, what we've witnessed over the course of the last several years, indicates the degree to which this is not a hoax. This, just like COVID-19, is something that is based on science. We have to start dealing with it. We can deal with it, but we're losing time, and it's important for us to step up and cooperate with other countries to make sure that the planet is as accommodating to our children and grandchildren as it has been to us. COVID-19 is on the ballot because we can continue to do better and step up in ways that we've seen other countries do. It's disproportionately impacted folks who are already poor, people of color, and you know, if you have a grandparent or a parent who has been isolated, is scared, is at risk of getting sick, that's on the ballot. Are they going to be in a position in which they can count on the government to have smart policies to ensure that we're able to weather this storm? The people who are out of work, people who are desperately worried right now about paying the mortgage, all that's on the ballot. If you are concerned, if you were one of the folks like Michael B. Jordan during this summer, who were concerned about making sure that we have a criminal justice system that, in fact, is not discriminating against people because of what they look like, that finally acknowledges and takes on the problems of racial bias in the criminal justice system. That's on the ballot, not just at the presidential level or the vice presidential level, not even just at the congressional level, but also district attorneys and mayors and governors and states attorneys. All that's on the ballot. So bottom line is every issue you care about is impacted by this election, and you have the opportunity to exercise your power. Ultimately, our power is derivative of you. When I was president of the United States, I could get a lot done, but I was only able to get as much done as I had a Congress and a Senate that was supporting what I was doing and had active, informed citizens who were able to continue to push their representatives to support what we were proposing. And sometimes I hear people saying, well, not enough has changed. Everything that we hoped for didn't get done during Obama's administration or under a Democratic Congress, so why bother? Well, look, government's not going to solve every problem, and it's certainly not going to do so overnight. But on every issue that you care about, if you have people who share your concerns and values, and they are in office, then things will get better. They move in a better direction. They have a significant impact on people's lives directly. And for you to give up that power means that that void is going to be filled by folks who don't care about you and don't care about the issues that you care about. Anyway, I suspect I'm preaching to the choir. Last point I'm going to make on voting is that although there is no doubt that we've seen a Republican Party that is actively trying to discourage people from voting. And I should add, by the way, this is fairly unique. You don't see other advanced democracies where you have government officials trying to make it as hard as possible to vote. But despite attempts at voter suppression, despite efforts to discourage people from voting and the misinformation that's floating around the internet, the fact of the matter is voting for the overwhelming majority of us is something that you can still get done. If you have a plan, if you've gone to something like vote.org, taken a look at what the rules are in your state, made a plan, when am I going to vote? If I'm going to vote by mail, do I make sure that I do it early? If I'm going to vote in person, is there early voting where I can show up and there's not a big crowd, which means that I'm going to be potentially safer? The truth is that when it comes to just being a citizen and doing your duty, this is not an over-taxing, over-difficult process. But it's one that we all have to be informed about. And what I'm most concerned about is everybody on this line, that all of you are going out there and reaching out to people who are less engaged, less informed, and ensuring that you're doing the job of persuading them to turn out. If we turn out, then we win, because the fact is there are more people who believe in making sure everybody has health care. There are more people who believe in having a criminal justice system that's free of racial bias. There are more people who believe in caring for our environment. There are more people who believe in providing people with a high enough minimum wage and opportunities so that they can support a family. That's the majority of Americans, but it isn't always the majority of voters.